Greetings from Marble Music Studios, USA. After weeks of upgrading everything from Sonar to native instruments, it's time to create a new template. So let's take a look. Boom, there it is. That looks pretty sharp. Pretty good looking template. Colors, different size strips. So we'll go everything I put in the template, how I set it up. We'll take a look at the control bar. We'll talk about Gobbler a little bit. So let's get started. First thing I want to start with is the Pro channel. And I've set up a Pro channel with the items that I want in it, and then I replicated it across every track. So I can use the different modules on different settings for different tracks. So let's see what I have in here. The first thing I have is the EQ, and that's a nice EQ, but that's a lot of buttons to turn. So the magic button is right there. This opens the Spectrum Analyzer. And what this is as the track's playing, you can EQ it right here with your mouse. Just drag the highs or down with the mids, up with the lows, and you'll drag kind of a waveform of the EQ that you want. I don't have anything in here, so we can't do it. But it's sure a lot easier than moving all these knobs. You just drag your highs where you want them. And another nice thing about this EQ is it has 4 different types. So that is a very nice EQ with the magic button. The second item in the chain is the CA2A compressor. This is modeled after the CA2A hardware compressor that studios used years ago. Very expensive piece of hardware. But that's what everybody wanted, so now they've created this fine little VST for cakewalk. The next item I have in here is another compressor. Because the two process differently, so they create different sounds. So sometimes you want to use the CA2A, sometimes you just want to use a regular compressor. So again, it's whatever you want to hear, just play around with both of them. The last 2 items in the chain are the tape emulator and the console emulator. These also go back to the analog days, because sometimes digital recording is too clean. And we need to add some noise or some tape hiss. You know, kind of like you've turned up guitars to saturate the tape in analog, so it created a different type of sound. And the console emulator is based on those big hardware consoles that studios used years ago and still use today. So they're very subtle effects, but they do make a difference. So turn them on and try them out. The console emulator always has to be the last item in your chain to work correctly. And you can drag items in your chain just by highlighting where they are and dragging them down. And again, if you right-click anywhere within the chain, you can replace modules or you can insert modules. You can also remove them. So a pretty well thought out Pro channel, and I think it will work quite well in future recordings. And again, it's replicated across all tracks. So let's take a look at the tracks. Probably the first thing you notice is the strips are thinner, more narrow than the usual size. Simple way to do that is go to the strips menu, and you can widen all or narrow all. I narrowed mine so I can see all my tracks. And I still have room for a few more, but this is a 16-track template, and that's probably enough for me. The other thing you're probably noticing is the colors. Nice little feature addition in Sonar X3. And you know, I used it to group the various pieces and instruments that I have here. So, you know, this is my drums and percussion. I have my keyboards here, my strings and horns, my guitars, and my vocals. And it's just visually kind of cool. The other thing that I changed is the icon of each track to correlate to the instrument I'm using. So just double click it. It will open a menu of all the different folders of the various pictures you can grab, and you can add them as the picture to your icon on the track. Pretty fun stuff. So let's take a look at what I have loaded here. So track 1 is my drum set. We know what's coming. We know what's coming. There it is. Nice. Addictive drums. Someday we'll go through that. That's fun stuff. Track 2, I've added some percussion, and for that I used battery 4 from Native Instruments. Just loaded the percussion library, and I selected the Afro Shop Kit, which has a whole boatload of different percussion sounds. Very nice. Track 3 is my grand piano, and this is Addictive Keys. This is the free version, but the full version is on the way. This has some really nice piano sounds, and you can edit, where the mics are placed, how much reverb, how you're hitting the piano comes across as soft or hard. I mean, this is a nice keyboard sound. The best I've ever heard. So can't wait for the full version to get here and start tracking. Track 4 is the Rhodes piano, and this is the Lounge Lizard, which was a new addition in Sonar X3, a really good Rhodes piano, and it has a lot of different versions of it. I kind of like the chorus, the Rhodes chorus. Lounge Lizard's very nice, very nice. Track 5, I added an organ, and for this I used Contact 5 out of the Complete program from Native Instruments. Indian Rope Men, very cool organ sound. I'll play you some samples one of these days, but it just came straight out of the Contact factory library. Good sound, because you can play around with the reverbs, and you can open the toolbox, and you can add various effects, and I mean, it's limitless what you can do with these programs anymore. So I like the Indian Rope Men sound. Track 6, I've got some strings in here, and again, just using the orchestral string ensemble out of the Contact factory library. Very good string sound, lots of flexibility. Track 7, that's my horn section. Just did the update from Native Instruments, 24 different updates. Yeah, right, that took about 5 hours. But they added some new things in it. Giant, the Giant is a keyboard. The Evolve Mutations 2 is in here. They added some new basses, a whole bunch of new Abbey Road drum kits, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, modern drums, session strings, Damage, Retro Machines, Evolve. Here's session horns, that's brand new. Real nice sax, trumpet, trombone together. Really nice sound for my little horn section there. Track 8 and 9 are both basses. 8 is the Midi Bass, and I use the Scarby J Bass. It's a good, finger picking bass sound that I can play on the keyboard instead of going downstairs and getting my bass guitar. But when I do go get my bass guitar, I'm using the Mark bass from Overloud, the TH2 guys. This is a pretty slick little program, real flexible, just like an amplifier, and then lots of different banks and presets, pedals. Pretty nice. Pretty nice bass amp. I like it. Guitars, I've added 3 different ones, 2 electric and an acoustic. The first one is obviously TH2, and what I did with this patch that I have is, and I'll show it to you here. So we drag past. So I added, because you can add in different pedals. So with Guitar Rig or TH2, there's a lot of noise in the background, buzz and all that. So I just added a gate in there and then figured out exactly where I wanted it to gate to get out all that buzz. And that way it only comes on when I hit the guitar. I've loaded the Jim Rock patch that I made. Saw this guy on the internet who created a list of patches that I downloaded. They're all rock patches. Pretty cool sounding guitar. And so I played around with it, and then I wanted to save my version. So I did. And I've loaded that in as Jim Rock to be part of my first guitar. And up comes some additional toys you can play with, reverb, delay, so on and so forth. So Jim Rock is a good patch. I'll ship it off to you. The second guitar was Guitar Rig. Now, just did a big update, Guitar Rig 5.2 yesterday. Lots of new stuff in here. You know, they're getting after it. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this again. They have lots of new presets, lots of new sounds and settings. You know, I really like Guitar Rig, always have, for some of their acoustic guitar sounds. But they just keep building it. I mean, more and more amplifiers, you know, based on different styles or different song types, a ton of effects. They've even brought in their compressors, and Guitar Rig's pretty cool. Now they know how to get rid of the buzz. Just throw a gate in there and you're good to go. So I'm using both TH2 and Guitar Rig. And then my acoustic one, I'll continue to use Guitar Rig until I can find a TH2 sound. The last 4 tracks are all vocal tracks. So I have a lead, background 1, background 2, background 3. I only have one item loaded in here. It's the VX64 vocal strip plugin. This is pretty cool because it comes with, you know, 5 different items in one. So you have a de-esser, a doubler, a delay, a compand, and a tube equalizer. You know, I like the equalizer because I can crank up the highs on my vocal and get, you know, more breathy vocal. Love the doubler, just to, you know, just a tad bit, you know, kind of fattens up the vocal, and then the delays there. That's kind of nice. So you can turn them all on, or you can turn them all off. You can use one, you can use them all. So the VX64 vocal strip is a pretty nice plug-in for vocals. And then I'll add in other things later as needed. But the way you load that, just go to your VST2s and there it is. Pretty slick stuff. The other thing that I'll load in here soon will be the new Nectar 2 from Isotope, specifically for vocals. This thing is killer. You know, it comes with various effects: a compressor, a gate, de-esser, a saturation, and harmonies. And you can kind of go into depth with each one. Does a whole bunch of things. Does pitch correction. You could transpose it, sound like a chipmunk if you want. Has a gate. Here's how you do your harmonies. This is kind of neat. You can add up to 4 different harmonies, and it will actually do it itself based on what track you're trying to put a harmony to. And what's kind of cool about it is it'll place these dots for each harmony, and then you can drag them around and play around with them to get different harmonies. If it doesn't hit your harmonies right on, you can also use a MIDI controller, keyboard, and tell it where you want these dots to go. So pretty excited about the harmonizer inside of Nectar 2. Saturation, EQ, compressors, de-essers, limiters, effects, you know, distortion, modulation, delay, reverb. I mean, this is a whole vocal suite. It's a pretty nice program and a pretty big update for Nectar. So iZotope Nectar 2 is sweet, sweet Nectar. So this gives you an idea of what I've loaded in each track. We've talked about the colors and the changing of the icons. We've looked at the VX64 vocal strip. I'm going to get rid of Nectar there because I'm not going to use it yet. The last thing in the track view we'll talk about is what I have in the master channel effects. In other videos we talked about a couple of items that I had in here that I removed because I was having some latency issues, and those were the LP64 EQ and the LP64 multiband. They just were giving me fits with latency, so I had to kind of back up to where I was building my template to where I wasn't having latency issues, and those were the two items. I don't really need the EQ anymore because I have this bad boy in every single channel, right? Spectral analysis, very cool. Love that EQ. So I took those out. So what I did keep in here was boost. And the one thing I'll say is whether it's in the power strip or the pro channel or the actual effects that I'm using, I have them all turned off because I want to record stuff first the way it's to be recorded, and then turn things on and then start to play around with the all the toys that are in here. So everything is off. It's just sitting there ready to go, so I don't have to go load it. So boost for more bottom end. Of course, got to have your iZotope Ozone 5, which is that's the mastering tool there. And then the stereo imager, again, crazy stuff. Big circle. Wow. Really, really love it. So those are the only three items I have in my master channel. So as I start to record things, I'll turn them on and turn them off, and I'll turn on the EQ and I'll turn it off. And again, you just turn things on by clicking their on-off button. But I want to hear it dry first. Then I'll turn them on. So that kind of gives you a good idea of what I have in all the tracks. So a couple other things that we'll talk about. The control bar usually comes preloaded with a lot of controls that I don't even know what they are, let alone use them. So if you right click anywhere in the control bar, these are all the different modules that are available. So just pick what you want. When I first loaded the X3 update, some of them were, it'll say hidden on screen because it can only fit so many that you can see. And Gobbler was one of those. So I had to make sure I could see it. And then I got rid of some of the ones, sync module, event inspector, markers. I don't need all that stuff. And then you can set them up any way you want. You can just pick one of these. These are all just modules. You can just drag them right to left, left to right, put them wherever you want them. Customize your screen. So good thing to right click and make sure you have your control bar set up. Talk about Gobbler here for a second. Again, this is our new version of YouSendIt. You can send projects using Gobbler. You can see if you have any messages. Maybe somebody sent you a file, and you can actually back up projects in Gobbler. Get 5 GB free per month to send and receive. But if you use the Cakewalk provided discount code, you get an extra 20 GB per month for 6 months, and you got to pay for it. 5 GB per month is fine for me, and I like free, so that's what I'm sticking with. To make Gobbler work, you obviously have to get your account, free account, and this is what the window looks like. You can go to your preferences. You can always make sure that it starts when you start Windows, so you can always connect to it, not have to log into your account. Easy to send files, just like YouSendIt. Email address, drag your file in there, write a description and send it. Or you can just use the Gobbler link right out of Sonar. So as long as you're connected, if you're not connected, the G is white, so you just click the G, it will connect as long as you're in your account. And then you just say, send project using Gobbler. Type in the email address and you're good to go. So that's pretty slick stuff there. So I think that's about everything on the template that we can talk about today. I think it looks good, it's organized, it has everything in it that I want to see from my end. Feel free to add, change, delete anything you see in here, but this is pretty well thought out. I really love the Pro channel. And I think it's going to work out well for future recordings. So there's a look at the Sonar X3 producer template at Marble Music Studios USA. Until next time.